Welcome to my channel. Yes, Moments with Buki. My name is Bukola Olajide. Yes, I'm a child development psychologist that caters to children with special needs, basically special needs. So if you have a child who is having difficulties with learning, so he or she has a learning difficulty, learning disability, such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, writing, dyslexia, reading difficulty, or autism, or is on the spectrum, yes, or you have a child who has cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, Asperger's syndrome, whatever disorder, this channel is one that you can always come to and get information on how to care for your child. Okay? And then things to look out for when you're seeking a therapist for that child. Even if you're looking for a school, an inclusive school that can take in the child, while he or she learns. There is hope for every child. So don't think that, oh, because you have a special child, that's the end of it for that child. No. Scripture says that I and the children that God has given to me, we are for signs and wonders. Isaiah 8 verse 18. So if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, kindly hit the subscribe button now. Please hit the subscribe button so that every time I post a new video, you will get the notification. All right? So today let's get into a particular section of the spectrum, the autism spectrum disorder. And this time I will be synchronizing speech disorder with selective mutism. All right. So there are some children that have speech or articulation disorders. Let's start from speech. How did it come about? Speech is a process. Talking is a process. And that process goes through a line of channels. And the first point is the source. The source of every speech. How we speak, the source is the brain. Okay? And so the message moves from the brain through the transmitter. And the transmitter is the sense organ responsible for speech, basically the mouth, right? And so we have the larynx, the pharynx, the esophagus, the throat, and the likes connected, and the tongue connected to the mouth. They all work together hand in hand to produce speech in every human. And so from the transmitter, the message moves through the air. That's the channel. It moves through the air. So when your child speaks to you, it moves from the source to the transmitter and to the channel. And then from the channel, it gets to the receiver, which is you. It goes in through the ears, okay? And then it goes to your brain too for interpretation. From ages 0 to 6 months, a child is expected to make sounds, okay? Make sounds, cuckoo sounds, baba sounds, all right? And so as the child progresses in age, in years, speech is formed eventually. And from his environment, he's also able to pick the language of the speech he would be speaking. Do you understand? So when you have a 2-year-old in an Igala setting or in an Ibibio setting, okay, the child will naturally pick up the resident language while he is forming speech. But you discover that some children, in spite of the interactions with the environment, in spite of the developmental age, he or she is still not achieving that milestone of producing speech. And so this begins to cause concern for the parents. In this situation, you need to take that child for a neuropsychological test. I'll advise that you first see a pediatrician, yes, and then a neurosurgeon who can then do a brain scan for the child, and then they know which of the muscles has been affected, whether during the prenatal stage or the natal stage, the point before birth or during birth or after birth, okay? But you need to do a test to be sure of the diagnosis. because there are different expressions of disorders. And so we don't just say, the child has autism. Oh, the child has speech delay. Oh, the child has, you have to test this medically for you to get the right diagnosis for the child. All right. And then after doing that, you then get therapy, whether speech therapy, and then you also see an audiologist. So the inability to produce speech is what we call articulation disorders. So a child is expected to say mommy, and then he's still saying m. So he begins to tell the mother, wait, what's the problem like this? What is the problem in this child that we need to go and talk to God about? Yes. So I always tell parents that once you notice that your child is not achieving or not producing what his peers are producing at their age, you can always report it back to God, the owner of that child, the creator of that child. All right? Because he was the one who formed the child in the womb. Okay? And since this child is for signs and wonders, Lord, what would you have me do to help this heritage of yours in my hands? All right. So what are the symptoms of articulation disorders? Where you begin to notice that, this child, even though he's producing speech to an extent, what are the symptoms that there's still a disorder? Number one, he's still mispronouncing words. So in spite of the interactions in his environment, even in the school, in spite of the learning and the teaching, he's still mispronouncing words. And you're like, no, it is book. And it says wook. Wook. It's not wook. It is a book. And so it becomes a tussle with the child. You're like, why are you not getting it? Your mates are getting it. Oh, that child is different by design. And you just need to understand the child and learn some strategies for interventions. And the earlier you discover that, the better. Another symptom of articulation disorder is that the child leaves out words. He leaves out words. So, for example, he sees on the screen, I am a girl. And then you say, oh, can you read that again for me? And says, oh, I am girl. What is on the screen? I am girl. So because some muscles of the brain responsible for speech are not 100% functioning, all right, then you discover that the child is also not producing speech at the optimum level. So he begins to leave out certain words, even while it's glaring in front of him or her. Another one is substituting one sound for another. So while the child is saying on the screen, it could be saying tss, tss. No, it's so that's because the part of the brain responsible for speech or sound coordination is not entirely coordinated. It's not entirely coordinated. And then another symptom is that the child gives distorting sounds. So now, what are the causes of articulation disorders? What are the causes? Number one, it's brain damage. Brain damage. Okay, so that's why we usually advise parents when you have a tiled house, like your floors are tiled, everything is tiled. Please, you may need to rug the floors, okay, so that it can prevent children from falling. All right. So when water spills on the floor and the child is playing rough and running around the house and he slips, God forbid, a brain damage that could actually impede speech. Another one is developmental delays. So while the child is growing in the womb as a fetus, if the parents are not, if the mom is not keen on, the right hygiene, good nutrition, taking a prenatal supplements and all that, the brain may not fully form, such that the child will be at the optimum level. And then physical structure could also be responsible, whether lip deformity, poor dentition, they are also can be the cause of articulation disorders. Now, on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, there are children who do not have problems with speech, okay, but they just decide to be selective when speaking. And their condition is known as selective mutism. So this is a situation where a child, irrespective of his speaking abilities, may still choose to be quiet when he is in certain places, certain environments. So you see that this child, he interacts with his mom at home, he speaks, at home, but when he gets to school or to church, he's completely quiet. No matter what the teacher does, he doesn't say a word. And the parent said, is this normal? Is this normal? Well, it's a condition of the brain too that interacts with the environment and then sends signals to the child to say, you're not talking here, you're not talking there. And so, because of that conditioning, the child unconsciously selects where to speak and where not to speak. So the problem now, if you enroll that child in school based on his communication and interaction at home, and he gets to school and the teacher does not understand, why is he talking at home and he's not talking in school? The teacher may not understand that he has the condition known as selective mutism. And so it's going to be very challenging for that teacher to grade him orally, like ask questions and say, oh, Tammy, could you tell me the answer? And the boy, he just keeps looking. So it's possible that Tammy knows what the teacher is saying, he understands perfectly, but he just cannot speak in public. All right? And so there are remedies for these things. There are remedies for these conditions in the children. You need to know also that some of these disorders are congenital. That is, they are from the genes of one or both parents of that child. Okay? And in many cases, you can always trace a disorder or a disability to either one or both parents. So how can you help a child that has articulation disorders or selective mutism? One of the things we do is blowing exercises. So the therapist works with the child closely to blow. So he blows whistles. So by blowing, the muscles of the mouth, are engaging in activities. And so the more you are engaging those muscles, the more signals are being sent to the brain to say, this child is meant to speak. The words should come out from this mouth, from this larynx, from this throat. Okay? So blowing exercise is one of the management strategies for this disorder. Number 2 is breathing. So you tell the child to breathe in and breathe out with mouth open. So the more he or she does it, the more it sends signals to the brain that speech is supposed to come forth from this mouth. Then we also have jaw exercises. You get to hold the chin of the child and you tell him or her to open. You can even help. Open and close, open and close, open and close while you are massaging the muscles of the mouth. Okay? You're massaging the chin all over like that. And then you also engage the mouth in eating foods that require extra chewing. And then there are parents who prefer to do smoothies for their children to school. You blend apple, blend watermelon, blend everything. Okay, but now we're trying to remedy a speech disorder. We encourage that you make your children eat. Let them chew on the food. Let them chew on the fruits so that the muscles of the mouth will also be very active. If a child decides to be quiet or there's a disorder that makes him or her quiet, you must not stay quiet. You must not be looking at the child. You must keep communicating and ensuring that the muscles of the mouth also speak and they're engaged in one activity or the other. So I hope you've been able to learn one or two things from this video. And if you have not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so that every time I post a video, you will be notified.